There was once a man who attended every gathering, answered every message, smiled at every face. He was known as the most social person in his circle. Everyone wanted him there. Everyone loved him. Yet at night, alone, he felt hollow. He had given so much of himself to others that nothing remained for himself. He was surrounded by people, yet utterly alone. This is the fate of those who never learn to stop being social. The prince knows that the crowd is a graveyard where time and energy go to die.
Notifications filled his every waking moment. Each ping pulled him from his work, his thoughts, his peace. He believed that responsiveness was kindness, that availability was virtue. Then he silenced his phone. At first, he felt a twinge of anxiety. What if someone needed him? But no one needed him. They only wanted his attention. The unanswered message is the message that trains others to wait. And the man who does not jump at every ping is the man who owns his own time.
The man in our story was exhausted because he never said no. Every invitation was accepted, every request honored, every demand met. He feared missing out, feared being forgotten, feared the silence of an empty calendar. Then one day, he declined. He stayed home. The world did not end. The invitations kept coming, but he had learned that he was not obligated to answer. The unreturned invitation is the invitation that teaches others that his presence is a privilege, not a right.
He used to attend every party, every meeting, every social obligation. He would stand in corners, making small talk, counting the minutes until he could leave. He realized one night that he had never truly wanted to be there. He was attending out of fear. Fear of missing something. Fear of being left out. Fear of the judgment of those who did attend. So he stopped. He stayed home. The unattended gathering is the gathering that cannot claim his energy. And the man who chooses his own company over the crowd's noise is never exhausted by meaningless performance. He used to spend minutes, sometimes hours, saying goodbye at gatherings. He would find the host, thank them profusely, promise to come again, then get trapped in one more conversation, then another. One night, he simply left. He walked to the door and vanished. No one noticed for an hour. When they did, they assumed he had urgent business. He had learned that goodbyes are performances that no one really watches. The unspoken goodbye is the goodbye that takes no time. And the man who does not perform his departures saves hours of meaningless farewells over a lifetime.
He had memorized the scripts. How are you? To which the answer is always fine. We should get together sometime, which no one means. Let me know if you need anything, which no one acts upon. He realized that these scripts were not communication. They were rituals designed to fill silence. He stopped reciting them. He spoke only what he meant, and he meant only what he would do. The unread social script is the script that cannot trap him in insincere performances. And the man who refuses to recite is the man who has time for what matters. He did not become a hermit overnight. He withdrew gradually, testing the waters, learning which connections truly mattered and which were merely noise. Some friends fell away. They had been built on convenience, not depth. Others remained, and their remaining was proof of genuine connection. He learned that withdrawal is not a single event. It is a practice. Each day he chooses silence over noise. The work never ends,
and neither does his peace. The unfinished withdrawal is the withdrawal that can adapt to a changing world. In his solitude, he feared that he would become lonely. He had been taught that isolation is dangerous, that humans are social creatures, that to be alone is to be broken. But as the days passed, he discovered something unexpected. He was not lonely. He had his own company, and it was enough. He read, he thought, he worked, he rested. The loneliness he had feared was not the absence of others. It was the absence of himself. The unfelt loneliness is the loneliness that cannot drive him back into the arms of people who drain rather than replenish. He had lived for the audience, posting updates, sharing moments, curating an image of a busy, happy, connected life. He realized that this performance was exhausting and empty. No one truly cared about his updates. They were scrolling past, looking for their own reflections. He stopped performing. He stopped posting. He lived his life without witnesses. The unobserved life is the life that cannot be judged because it is not on display. And the man who stops performing for an audience discovers who he actually is when no one is watching.
He had never known how to set boundaries. He said yes to everything, even when he wanted to say no. People took advantage of his availability, not out of malice, but because he had taught them that he had no limits. One day, he set a boundary. He said no. The person who asked was surprised, then adjusted. The world did not collapse. He learned that boundaries are not walls that push people away. They are filters that let the right ones through. The unspoken boundary is the boundary that does not need to be explained, only enforced.
Obligation had ruled his calendar. He attended events out of duty, not desire. He visited relatives out of guilt, not love. He helped acquaintances out of fear, not generosity. In solitude, he examined these obligations. Many were not obligations at all. They were expectations he had accepted without question. He released them. He stopped attending out of duty. He lost some relationships, but the ones that remained were the ones that mattered. The unfelt obligation is the obligation that cannot control him because he has revoked its authority. He had craved the approval of others. He needed to be liked, to be invited, to be included. This need had driven his social compulsion. In solitude, he confronted this need. He asked himself, why do I need their approval? What do I fear losing? He realized that the approval he sought was not love. It was permission to exist. He withdrew his request for permission. He approved of himself. The unread approval is the approval that cannot be withheld because it was never requested. And the man who approves of himself is immune to the judgments of others.
He did not seek permanent seclusion. He was not a misanthrope. He did not hate people. He simply learned to be selective. Some gatherings he attended, most he skipped. Some messages he answered, most he ignored. Some relationships he nurtured, most he allowed to fade. He found a balance that few achieve. Enough solitude to know himself, enough connection to remember himself. The unfinished seclusion is the seclusion that is never absolute. And the man who can be alone and also with others on his own terms is the man who has mastered the art of strategic solitude.
He used to keep a calendar full of appointments, meetings, obligations, all visible to anyone who asked. He learned that a visible calendar is an invitation for others to fill it. He made his calendar private. He did not share his plans, did not advertise his availability, did not explain his absences. When someone asked if he was free, he said, "I'll let you know." He had reclaimed the right to be unavailable. The unreadable calendar is the calendar that cannot be commandeered, and the man who guards his schedule guards his life.
Subscribe to The Dark Scholar. Join the silent army of those who have learned that solitude is not loneliness. It is sovereignty. Hit subscribe now, and every week, reclaim another piece of your time.
The world will call you antisocial, cold, unfriendly. Let them talk.
They're the same ones who never have a moment to themselves, who are exhausted by their own social calendars, who secretly wish they could say no. Stopping being social is not about rejecting humanity. It is about reclaiming yourself. You owe no one your time, your attention, your presence. You may choose to give them, but you are not obligated. Now go. Silence your phone. Decline the next invitation. Stay home. Use the hours to build something that matters only to you. Then, when you are ready, step back into the world on your own terms. Be the prince.
Share this video with one person who needs permission to say no. Send it to someone who is drowning in social obligation. Tell them you have permission to stay home. Spread the art of strategic solitude.
There was once a woman who believed her worth was measured by the size of her social circle. She had hundreds of friends online, dozens of acquaintances in person, and a calendar so full she could not remember the last time she had spent an evening alone. She was admired, invited, included. Yet she could not remember the last time she had finished a book, had a thought of her own, or woken up without dread. The prince knows that a crowded calendar is often a crowded grave, filled with obligations that bury the self beneath the weight of performance. Friendship, she had learned, was supposed to be work. She maintained relationships like a gardener maintaining 100 plants, watering, pruning, fertilizing, exhausting herself. Then one day, she stopped. She did not announce her departure. She simply ceased the maintenance. Some friendships withered immediately, those built on her effort alone. Others surprised her. They reached out, not because she had reminded them to, but because they actually cared. The unperformed friendship is the friendship that survives without performance. And the man who stops performing discovers who truly values him. Everyone had expectations of her. She was expected to show up, to help, to listen, to give. She had internalized these expectations until they felt like laws of nature. Then, she broke them. She did not show up. She did not help. She did not listen. She gave nothing. The world did not end. Some people were angry. Then, they adjusted. Others stopped calling. They had been using her, not loving her. The unanswered expectation is the expectation that cannot enslave her because she has revoked its power. And the woman who disappoints expectations discovers which relationships were transactions and which were true. Unfelt FOMO, the fear of missing out. This fear had driven her to attend every event, answer every invitation, stay at every gathering until the bitter end. She feared that if she missed one thing, she would be forgotten, replaced, left behind. Then she missed something, not by choice, but by necessity. She was sick, forced to stay home. She expected the world to move on without her. It did. But it had always been moving without her. Her presence had never been essential. She was not the center of anyone's universe. This realization did not sadden her. It freed her. The unfelt FOMO is the fear that once examined reveals its own absurdity. And the man who accepts that he is not indispensable can finally rest.
She had chased popularity like a drug, needing the validation of being liked, wanted, chosen. Each like, each invitation, each inclusion was a hit that wore off quickly, requiring another. She realized that popularity is not love. It is attention, and attention is the cheapest currency. She stopped chasing. She unfollowed the accounts that made her feel inadequate. She stopped tracking who had invited her and who had not. She discovered that no one noticed her withdrawal except those who had been using her for their own validation. The unread popularity is the popularity that cannot be measured because she has stopped keeping score. And the woman who stops chasing approval finds that she never needed it in the first place.
In her solitude, she discovered a version of herself she had never met. This self was not performing, not pleasing, not managing anyone's emotions. This self read books until dawn, wrote in journals, walked in nature without documenting it. She had been so busy being social that she had never given herself the chance to know who she was when no one was watching. The prince knows that the person you become in solitude is the only person who truly exists. The unseen solitary is the self that cannot be performed because it is not for an audience. And the man who meets this self discovers that he is the only company he will never lose.
She had always believed that a close circle of friends was essential to happiness. She had fought to maintain a circle, to keep everyone connected, to prevent drift. Then she let go. The circle did not hold. Some drifted away, some faded, some disappeared entirely. In their place, something unexpected emerged. Not a circle, but a constellation. Different people for different seasons, different needs, different depths. She no longer needed everyone to know everyone. She had learned that the unfinished circle is the circle that allows for growth. And the man who releases the need for a fixed circle discovers that connection does not require enclosure.
She had believed that contribution required visibility, that if she was not seen helping, she was not helping at all. She had volunteered for committees, organized events, donated publicly. In her solitude, she found quieter ways to contribute. She gave anonymously, helped without credit, worked without witnesses. She discovered that invisible contribution is often the most powerful. It cannot be taken, cannot be used against her, cannot be demanded. The unforced contribution is the contribution that asks for nothing in return. And the man who gives without witnesses receives a gift that cannot be stolen, his own integrity.
She had been always available. Her calendar was an open book. Her time was public property. She learned to become unavailable, not by hiding, but by refusing to explain. When someone asked if she was free, she said, "I'm not sure," or "I'll let you know," or simply, "No." She did not explain why. Her reasons were her own. The unreadable availability is the availability that cannot be assumed. And the woman who reclaims the right to be unavailable reclaims her life.
She did not retreat from the world forever. She learned to move between solitude and society on her own terms. Some days she was social. Most days she was not. She stopped feeling guilty for choosing herself over others. She realized that the retreat is never finished, not because she is antisocial, but because she is always recalibrating, always choosing, always protecting the space she has carved for herself. The unfinished retreat is the retreat that can adapt to a changing life. And the man who never fully retreats never fully loses himself.
The world will call you antisocial, cold, unfriendly. Let them talk. They are the same ones who never have a moment to themselves, who are exhausted by their own social calendars, who secretly wish they could say no. Stopping being social is not about rejecting humanity. It is about reclaiming yourself. You owe no one your time, your attention, your presence. You may choose to give them, but you are not obligated. The second part of your journey is now complete. You have learned to say no, to disappear, to guard your calendar. Now go further. Build a life so rich in solitude that the world's invitations become optional rather than obligatory. Be the prince.
Subscribe to The Dark Scholar. Join thousands who have learned that the loudest voice is often the emptiest, and that silence is the foundation of power. Hit subscribe now and never miss another lesson in strategic withdrawal. Take 30 seconds right now. Open your calendar. Cancel one social obligation that you have been dreading. Do not replace it. Leave the space empty. That empty space is your first victory. Comment below, I canceled one thing today. Let us hold each other accountable.
The man who had learned to say no now faced a new challenge, the loneliness of those who had depended on him. His old friends, the ones who had taken more than they gave, began to resent his absence. They called him selfish, arrogant, changed. They said he was not the person they once knew. He was not. He had become someone they could no longer use. The prince knows that when you stop being social, you will lose people. This is not a tragedy. It is a filtration. Those who leave were never truly with you. Those who stay are the ones worth keeping.
He had once feared losing friends, clinging to relationships long after they had become draining. In his solitude, he learned to let go. He did not mourn those who left when he stopped performing. He did not chase after those who faded when he stopped initiating. He realized that a relationship that requires constant maintenance to survive is not a relationship. It is a job. The unmourned departure is the departure that clears space for what actually matters. And the man who stops mourning the leavers discovers that his life becomes lighter. In his solitude, he learned to be present when he chose to be present, fully, deeply, without distraction. He no longer attended events half-heartedly, scrolling through his phone, counting the minutes. When he decided to be social, he was all in. His presence became rare, and because it was rare, it became valuable. People noticed when he arrived. They were grateful when he stayed. The unforced presence is the presence that cannot be taken for granted. And the man who gives his attention sparingly finds that his attention, when given, is treasured. He began to use his solitude for what it was meant for, reflection. He journaled, meditated, walked in silence. He asked himself hard questions. What do I actually want? Who do I actually enjoy? What am I afraid of losing? The answers surprised him. Many of the things he had been chasing were not his desires. They were the desires of the people around him, projected onto him. The unseen reflection is the reflection that reveals the difference between what you want and what you have been told to want. And the man who reflects in solitude discovers that he has been living someone else's life. In his solitude, he stopped comparing his social life to others. He did not know how many parties his colleagues attended. He did not know how many friends his neighbors had. He did not know who was invited where. He had stopped looking. Comparison, he realized, is the engine of social compulsion. The fear that others have more, do more, are more. Without comparison, the engine stalled.
The unfelt comparison is the comparison that cannot drive him into exhaustion. And the man who stops looking sideways looks forward instead.
He stopped sharing his schedule with others. He did not post his plans on social media. He did not tell acquaintances where he would be. He did not explain why he was unavailable. His schedule became a black box, visible only to himself. People could not demand his time because they did not know when he was free. They could not guilt him into attending because they did not know what else he was doing. The unreadable schedule is the schedule that cannot be invaded, and the man who guards his calendar as a state secret guards his life.
He did not become a hermit. He did not swear off all human contact. He simply learned balance. Not the balance of equal parts, but the balance of choosing. Some weeks he was highly social. Others he was entirely solitary. He stopped judging himself for either. The unfinished balance is the balance that does not require perfection. And the man who accepts that his social energy will ebb and flow stops fighting the tide and starts swimming with it. He learned to invite himself, not to events, but to solitude. He would look at his calendar and see an empty evening, and instead of filling it, he would celebrate it. He would light a candle, pour a drink, open a book. He treated his solitude as an invitation to himself, a date with the person he was becoming. The unspoken invitation is the invitation that requires no host, and the man who invites himself to his own company discovers that he is the best guest he has ever had. He realized that withdrawal is not a one-time event. It is a rhythm. Some months he was highly social. Other months he disappeared entirely. He stopped explaining the pattern to others. Some understood, some did not. Those who mattered learned to accept his rhythm. Those who did not matter fell away. The unfinished withdrawal is the withdrawal that never ends, because he is always recalibrating. And the man who accepts that his need for solitude will change with the seasons stops apologizing for his own nature. The world will call you antisocial, cold, unfriendly. Let them talk. They are the same ones who never have a moment to themselves, who are exhausted by their own social calendars, who secretly wish they could say no. Stopping being social is not about rejecting humanity. It is about reclaiming yourself. You owe no one your time, your attention, your presence. You may choose to give them, but you are not obligated. The final part of your journey is to understand that solitude is not a punishment. It is a gift you give yourself. You have learned to say no, to disappear, to guard your calendar. You have learned to prune, to reflect, to balance. Now you must learn to enjoy the silence. Not to endure it, not to tolerate it, but to love it. When solitude becomes a pleasure rather than a refuge, you have achieved mastery. Go now. Build your empty room. Live there as long as you need. Emerge when you choose. Stay when you want. Leave when you wish. You are the prince of your own time.
Subscribe to The Dark Scholar. This channel is your permission slip to say no, to stay home, to choose yourself. Hit subscribe now and join a community of people who have learned that the loudest voice is often the emptiest, and that silence is the foundation of power. Take 60 seconds right now. Write down 3 social obligations you have been dreading. Cross out the one that matters least. Do not replace it. Leave the space empty. Then, tomorrow night, instead of attending that event, light a candle and read a book. Comment below.
I chose myself today. Let us build a silent army of those who have learned to say no.